Welcome to the 16th anniversary of the Radio Horror Show here tonight. And tonight with us, we have a very special guest with us, the writer of the current Marvel comic book Blade series. We have writer Bryan Hill on the show with us. Thank you for coming with us to our 16th anniversary here, Bryan.
Hey, I am here on Gossamer Butterfly Wings just to be here with you guys.
What was your here's a fun question we'll start with. How did you ever hear about Blade?
Oh gosh. Well,
if you say you're so old that you picked up Tomb of Dracula when you were a kid, then you are so old.
No. I mean, I think I was like kind of ambiently aware of Blade before the movie came out. Knowing like he was like a character in the Marvel universe, but I think probably the Stephen Norrington film is the first like real kind of Blade experience I can think of. For listeners, I'm a writer, filmmaker, screenwriter, television producer. That show Titans on HBO Max. I'm a writer producer on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you write the F Batman line?
No, that was in there before I got there.
God. I was going to say, I want my 1050 back.
No. That was in the pilot before I got there.
Let's hope that you, when you came on, you made good changes to the show because, boy, talking about the most divisive DC comic show ever.
Well, I think the people that were really putting it together, kind of wanted to flex a little bit and do some different things and try some things out that weren't like, totally traditional, right? It was an exciting experience because of that, and they're all lovely people. And I learned a lot when I was working on the thing. It was on that thing from the beginning.
Oh my God!
Seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah. So being a film guy, I was a film guy. So I saw the movie and really loved the movie. And then after that, kind of went back and looked up this character, right? Tomb of Dracula stuff and everything else. So yeah, I mean, I kind of went back to the comics after I'd seen the movie. But I to be honest, I think like my first robust Blade experience was Wesley Snipes.
So that was like really like kind of a big exposure to him. Mine was what do you call it? Was Night Stalkers in the 90s?
Oh yeah, for sure.
By G.G. Chichester, CG. Damn it, he just came on the show too. C.G. Chichester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's always like kind of great like miniseries stuff that's there, or like little bits and pieces that are out there to find for sure.
And I also found I mean, that was my exposure. I don't think I deep dived too hard into him until the movie came out, and then I really started going backwards, and like the Essentials, Marvel's Essential books were coming out around that time as well when the movie came out in the early 2000s. So they started putting out those Essential Tomb of Draculas, and that's when I was just like the big information dump you needed, really. Because they also reprinted a couple years later, like Vampire Tales, which he was in it too. But it was actually, what was it called? It was the Spider-Man the Animated Series. I was like, oh, it's Blade! That's so awesome! I know who that is!
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean,
and people are like, "Who's Blade?" I'm like, "He's awesome."
Yeah, like I think that animated series and the X-Men show too, in its own way.
He never appeared on the X-Men show.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like the sense that a lot of people, I think, became aware of some more ancillary characters because of their appearances on the animated series. Right.
But I think it's Spider-Man's like the only thing he ever actually would ever appear on. Right? I don't think he appeared other than his own anime series. When Iron Man, Wolverine got anime shows and X-Men, I think that's been it, unless I missed something.
Just about. I mean, in terms of media, yeah, it's pretty much the films and the Spider-Man show.
The worst versions of vampires ever with the suction cups in the hands, because God forbid someone bites someone in the neck off camera. They could have just easily been like, and then it like fades away, and then they're sitting there. Oh, you get the impression what's going on. Why do we have to write stupidity for children? Really?
Well, I think there was that short-lived television series on Spike TV, as I recall.
There was that too, but that was well after Trinity came out in like 2000. That was 2006.
I didn't see very much of it, but I knew it was there.
Yeah, and you can still find that box set for like $10. Places, yeah, they must have mass produced the heck out of that box set, because I still find that box set for like cheap. Whereas like some TV shows they go out of print, it's like, ooh, this is like $100 now.
Wow.
And I don't, and I guess if Marvel owns all the media rights to Blade, since they're able to make the movie, they own that show. So it's just a matter of like Disney just putting it up on Disney Plus one day and being like, hey, guess what? The Blade movies are on Disney Plus and Blade, the series.
Right.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Yeah, because it's like, why not? They own the media rights because they're able to make the movie that is in gestation hell. But we're not going to talk about that. Was this supposed to be launched because the movie was supposed to come out this year? Would you guys already start developing this a while back when you thought there was going to be a movie finally?
Oh well, I mean, those kind of decisions are way above my pay grade, right? So like, what Marvel Entertainment writ large wants to do. I never really think about it. I got contacted by an editor friend of mine, Will Moss, who asked me if I'd be interested in doing, the Blade book, because I don't have a ton of time to do a bunch of comics. I can pretty much write one, maybe two books a month in between the screenwriting, the TV stuff, the filmmaking, everything else. But I love the medium. So I was just like, oh yeah, cool. I haven't really thought about Blade, about doing Blade in a while, or ever really. But I was able to, pitch him a story that was like a big, broad adventure story that felt like fun. I got a pretty long leash to work on. But yeah, I never really thought about how it worked inside the continuity of the whole thing. And those conversations don't just always drip down to the comic book stuff, right? And I'm the kind of person, the less I know, the better. If I don't need to know about it, then don't tell me. So,
and Blade just got done with his daughter's book, which is kind of interesting, because I don't know if you ever met Tim Seeley.
Oh, sure. I know Tim really well.
Tim created his daughter's character years ago, pitched to Marvel. They said, no, we don't want to do that. And then a few years later, they kind of do it.
Well, culture evolves and changes, and the needs of a company and their IPs change. So sometimes, that's happened to me before, too. Like, you'll pitch something and it's a no-go when you pitch it, but then later on, something will come out that's around the same thing, doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's just part of the dance of working with other people's characters,
right?
Part of the bargain you make is you'll get an opportunity to do some work, but they're going to do what they want when they want to do it, and you're gonna ideally you leave the house in order for the next person, right? So the next girl or guy that comes on in has what you've done there, and then they can play around with it as they see fit, right? So, it could have been a whole host of reasons why Marvel didn't feel at the time it was the right moment to give him a daughter. But things just happen. Tim and I, we've been around this game a long time, so we kind of know how this goes, and it's a matter of enjoying the process and not necessarily the destination, right? Like, love the journey.
We'll get right back into Blade just real quick, but this does tie to Blade. I created a character called Vlada, and it's actually the entire story of Dracula gender swapped.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so all the characters of Dracula are completely flipped around. Renfield's a woman, and Van Helsing's a woman. Mina and Lucy are dudes, and all the other characters too. But those are the ones usually people remember. Sure. There's like three other really main characters. Let's just face it. There's Mina, Lucy, Renfield, Van Helsing, and Dracula, and then there's like the brides of the grooms, and then there's like the other three characters that kind of help out Van Helsing and Jonathan Harker.
You got Quincy.
Yeah. They become like one character too sometimes because they're like, there's so many characters in Dracula. Okay, all three of these characters they become one, and because budget, and we don't have to pay the actors nearly as long to be on set. But long story short, we did that, and we made our Van Helsing also based on Gina Torres from Firefly.
Oh, interesting. I never met Gina, but I've heard really, really good things about people I know, mutuals that I've worked with her. I hear she's just fantastic.
And so back to Blade. Blade comes with some baggage. Because I've been following the character. I think I have now read every single appearance of the character, with the exception of one particular miniseries that has eluded me and now incredibly hard to find if you want back issues of it. Recently, Jason Aaron did a whole story where Blade becomes the sheriff of Vampire Town in Chernobyl because that's where vampires can live, and Dracula's this decrepit-looking old man. But you don't seem to be doing a lot with that, which is thankfully, because I kind of hated that.
Well, look, I
love Jason Aaron, but I hated that story.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jason and kind of all of his work, right? But what he constructed, I think, was so specific to who he is as a person, right? Like, so specific to his point of view that would feel pretty redundant to just come in and try to do what Jason was doing. When you're working on these IP characters, I think what you need to do is take them into your own hands and do the thing that feels right for you, right? Like, how can you add to this in a way that's interesting? And I think I'm more of a character-driven, kind of more furious, sort of plot momentum guy when it comes to characters like this. And I really wanted to do almost like a Bond scope adventure with him, where I could take him to different places and we could introduce characters that were sort of part of his world that we hadn't met yet. And, and just kind of play within those terms. So the idea of doing a contained story within a comic book, right, contained to primarily one location, that wasn't particularly of interest to me. And I think part of that is because I work in Hollywood too. I'm so used to budget considerations on everything. You write a screenplay, you got to think about the budget. You write a television episode, you definitely got to think about the budget.
My other
So
joke,
always...
the other joke I was going to make is that you wrote the comic book because you were on strike and it was just like money.
Oh, no.
Because that's the joke that everyone's making about what's her face who plays Miss Marvel. It's just like, oh, she's on strike. Of course she's going to need a paycheck. Go write the comic book if you want to play the character so badly.
That's funny. No, I mean, luckily,
which seems to be happening more and more. More of you guys coming out of Hollywood to go write comic books, and everyone's just like, oh, it's because they need money and they can write the comic books because the comic books won't break their strike deal.
Well, I had done a lot of work before the strike, so I went into the strike pretty good because I'm a guy that prepares for the future. So I saw the strike coming like a year before it was going to happen. So I kind of took on a bunch of things and stacked up some stuff so I wouldn't be in a position where I had to run out and do a thing. But what the strike did give me was the economy of time.
Right.
Because I don't have a lot of time. In between the contracted screenwriting work I do, the television work I've been doing, and the filmmaking work that I'm doing that's largely kind of on my own time as I'm trying to produce this movie I want to direct and make little short films and do the rest of it. I don't have a plethora of time. But the strike gave me kind of free days to work on a couple books. So that's why I jumped at the Blade chance. Because I'm like, okay, you know what? I have the time to kind of sit there and make this work. But yeah, like I was saying, because I'm so used to writing budget consideration, when I'm working on a comic book, I don't have to do that because a page is the same price no matter what happens on the page. So I can have a $300 million style adventure if I want, because the artist just gets a page rate the same as anything else, and that's a big reason why I like to work in comics, because when I work in comics, I can kind of be free with my imagination in a way that I can't really be, because there is a little austerity involved in writing for camera.
It's also funny is that some friends of mine were going to get together with this Blade cosplayer. He's jacked up like crazy, so he could easily play Blade. And we were like, let's in the next 2 months try to get a Blade fan film together or whatever, and then like post it online or whatever, because Disney seems to be okay with fan films, and just be like, hey, look what we did in 2 months. You couldn't get done in 4 years.
Well, the one of the things about making big movies is big movies are a lot of really expensive, slow-moving parts.
Right.
Too.
Oh, this would have been a short anyway. But it would have been like a ha-ha, let's, after the last announcement that Blade got pushed back.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, if making Hollywood movies was simply about the act of filmmaking, then scheduling would be a little bit different and deadlines would get hit a little bit more. But there's a lot more that goes into it. You're talking about, gosh, your above-the-line costs and something like that are in, $100 million, right? So, and that's just your above the line. In some cases, well, I mean, probably above and below, but like still, you're talking about something that is going to cost more than $100 million, most likely. And you want to kind of keep it from costing around $2 million. And that's essentially beginning a whole new corporation, right? Like every movie that you see, whether it's a Marvel movie or otherwise, is essentially a small business. It's employing hundreds of people. You're spending at least millions of dollars, if not tens of millions, to triple-digit millions, and it takes a lot. Yeah, it takes a lot to like line up all those parts to get the green light so that everyone feels comfortable and everyone has faith in the eventual result. Especially when you're launching a character in their own movie for the first time, when you have deep cultural considerations. Because pop culture has their own opinion of what they want and what they don't want. there's a lot of moving parts to that.
Right. We were some friends and I were talking about, it's just like, hey, did you notice one thing in the Blade films and the TV series, I guess less or no, but in the 3 films, they never talk about Blade being black. And I was like, that's going to change with the Marvel films. There will be a point about that at some point. And I'm like, that's like kind of like, why? I mean, you watch the 3 Blade films, they never make a point about racism. Sorta.
Well,
I mean, they make a little joke, but they don't really make a point about the fact that he's this black vampire slayer, you know? And
maybe not. You know, it's you just never know, right? You just never know what's going to be how something's going to be approached and which way they're going to do it.
Well, let me ask you: if you had to write the Blade script, would you ever bring that up? The fact that there's he's black and there's racism in the world and things like that, or would you just write it as like, this is his origin story, this is how he becomes a vampire, he goes and kicks some vampire butt, and what would you do?
Well, the way I approach stories in general is I'm very narrative focused, and I tend to think that things that are organic to the narrative wind up being organic to the narrative, and then when it comes to issues of race or gender or any sort of the cultural touch points we have right now, a lot of those things are going to be implicit simply by the existence of a certain kind of actor in the world, right? Now, if it makes logical sense for me, organic sense for me to be interfacing with any sort of cultural difference, gender difference, what have you, then I certainly don't shy away from it. But, my personal kind of approach to it is let the story take you there, right? I don't go into stories with a general agenda. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit in front of a wall of toys complaining about what Star Wars is doing every week, right? I am willing to kind of embrace and engage whatever the thing is, as the thing, right? So I don't think there's an either or, and I don't think there's a polemic. But me personally, as a storyteller, I tend to be governed by the god of story, right? So the story goes where it wants to go, and then I facilitate that in the telling of it. But I don't personally go into anything with an agenda to not do something or to do something, because I think either way you're reacting, and I don't like to be reactionary as a creator. I like to be proactive as a creator, right? Mm-hmm. And so proactivity is about just telling the story, and and you sort of figure out the way there, and people that know me online and talk to me on Twitter and the rest of it, they know that I really just avoid getting in the mire of the wokeism or anti-wokeism brigade and the rest of it. I don't care about any of that. I think that's all poppycock.
Yeah.
And
polite way of saying it. Thanks, because we're on the radio.
well, we're just talking about story, right? Like if you take RoboCop, look, you can parse RoboCop a million different ways. And if you're going to go into RoboCop looking to be offended by the violence, looking to be offended by the militarization of the whole thing, the muscularity of the whole thing, then you will be. If you go into RoboCop looking to kind of, target and red circle and YouTube monologue about anything that feels like a liberal political statement, then you're going to walk out of that movie angry.
What is Blade?
I think either of those two parties aren't going to actually sit down and enjoy RoboCop. And I just prefer to enjoy RoboCop.
Gotcha. As by the way, there's a giant RoboCop documentary out right now, 5 hours long.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I just watched it a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was amazing. They go through it scene by scene. So if anyone listening to this is interested in RoboCop, the original RoboCop, there is a great documentary about RoboCop that just came out.
We've had the film. We've had the film developers on it from RoboDoc.
I think it's on Screenbox now. So go to Screenbox and watch that. So tell them Bryan Hill sent you.
I should submit to Screenbox my TV series. It's a documentary, and Screenbox seems to have a lot of documentaries on there, not just horror, because RoboCop is science fiction. But my TV series is about deceased comic book writers and artists, and the pilot episode is about Mark Grunwald.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we will. It's currently kind of like in a film festival circuit right now, waiting on submissions and just kind of looking for money to help make more episodes, that sort of thing. The second episode is now all recorded. You're going to put it together soon. It's going to be about Denny O'Neil. So, yeah. Okay. So, the third episode is possibly going to be about either Darwin Cook or Bernie Wrightson. So,
well, it sounds like it seems like Screenbox is doing a lot of really interesting things in
Yeah.
documentary space. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like that'd be a kind of a likely place to try to find a home for it.
Yeah. What is Blade First Bite? Because that one is only on digital. I don't have the Marvel app.
Oh, well, Blade First Bite is kind of a bridge. It kind of addresses what you said before, about like sort of the status quo of Blade the last time we saw him in the comics, and kind of getting him up to where I have him in the beginning of my series, with some background on just Blade in general and his history in the Marvel Universe. I think it's an onboarding comic towards. I wrote it, and it's an onboarding comic for new readers or current readers, continuity readers, just want to kind of see how it all syncs up. So I think it's like less than a 20-page length, and it's just available, on the app, I believe.
Gotcha. So in the current Blade book,
trade. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully it'll come out in trade, because they seem to be doing a lot of that. They just did a spine-tingling Spider-Man. That was a big thing. It's a $10 comic book though, so that must be a lot of chapters. I had to pass on that one, but hopefully this is not $10 for these 4 little mini issues, but we'll have to wait and see. Sure. The current Blade comic book just recently came out with guest star Doctor Strange, which is great to have Strange and Blade team up. Just because they don't, it's funny enough, they don't actually do that all that often. But do you have ilkings and plans to possibly have like Hannibal King show up, who has not been seen, by the way, since like Civil War times, when that the last Blade series was like a lifetime ago?
Well, everyone that is in the world of Blade is kind of on the table, right? And so I have ideas for all of them. But I'm not going to deal them all in at once, and I certainly don't just want to parade somebody in just to say I did it and then leave them behind. Like, so it's more about, can I make a meal out of the character, and if so, when?
Right.
So if readers are fans of a certain character that Blade has interacted with previously, it's on the mind for sure.
Right.
But I want to make sure that if I bring them into the story, that I bring him into the story with a real purpose, and it's not just like a cameo. Right?
Well,
that's not satisfying.
The reason I bring that up is because in that last series as well, and I don't think any writer's done anything with this. The Blade and his father did some kind of like weird. His biological father, not Deacon Frost, did some weird spell, and it ended up bringing back every vampire who had ever gotten killed off before. And I was like, oh, that means like Rachel Van Helsing should come back to life as well, and because she got turned into a vampire, and then Wolverine popped his claws in her to kill her.
Sure.
And Deacon Frost came back at the end of the story, and like there was probably a couple other like really obscure vampire characters here and there that could possibly come back. Hunger was a character Spider-Man and Blade teamed up to fight, who kind of makes an appearance in the Morbius movie. Just because they share the same name, but I'm like, these two characters are so far apart. The writers just said, that's a vampire with a name. Let's make him our villain in our Morbius movie. And then there's another character that could show up in Blade, which is Morbius. But there's only 6 issues up on the Marvel site, so I'm wondering, is this only a 6-issue series, or is that all that's been shown in previews so far?
It's all that's been shown in previews so far. So we're gonna keep on trucking as long as people are reading it, I think.
Right.
And then well, that's a bit of a resetting, right? Like, so bringing all the vampires back is a bit of a reset that allows new ways to narratively have Blade engage these characters, because Blade, just frankly doesn't have a deep rogues gallery, right? Like, the best rogues gallery in comics is Batman, right? So he's got an incredible bench of bad guys you can throw into Gotham to get stories out of it. With Blade, you're kind of building things up a little bit, kind of based on, what's there, but also opportunities that you have to kind of create yourself. So I imagine having all the vampire characters come back kind of sets the palette cleansed so that you can come in and re-engage these characters and kind of do more with them.
What's been your approach to the vampires in this? Because I also see the vampires with the weird mandible faces kind of showing up too.
Well, I look at vampires like there's going to be distinctions and differences and all of that, and I'm kind of a fan of all vampires in media. So we've got sort of your classic, kind of romantic gothic vampires that are very Stoker-esque. You've got your more kind of monstrous gothic vampires like, F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu, right? And then the mandible vampires, it's more of a Del Toro invention, right? Looking at Blade and what I forgot the name of the FX series he did it for a while.
Strain.
The Strain,
Yeah,
right?
Chuck Hogan's actually going to be in town soon.
So then you have that kind of thing there. So I think that like vampires are there's classes and designations and all the rest of it. There's no reason why you can't have monstrous diversity among them. So it's not one or another. Like there's an issue coming up with Blade and Dracula that is very sort of classic, Stoker Gothic in how their interplay comes up. And that's certainly influenced by that. But I try not to be exclusive about it. I try to broaden it out and just engage. And in this part of the story, it just made sense that these were the kinds of vampires you'd be up against.
What do you happen to have a favorite vampire movie that you absolutely love? And you can't say any of the Blade movies or Morbius.
Oh, gosh.
Which I would love to see someone go, Morbius is my favorite vampire movie ever. And I would have the longest discussion to figure out why.
Probably Fright Night.
There you go. Actually, it's funny enough. I have a patch I just picked up today at a HorrorCon of Fright Night. And I've had the director on my show just recently met the actor who played Charlie and told him that Fright Night 2...
Tom Holland and William Ragsdale, right?
Yeah. And what it was funny is that the Regine Dandridge, the sister of Jerry Dandridge from Fright Night,
Julie
Carmen, her character in Fright Night Part 2 is the inspiration for me to do what I did with my Vlada Dracula character.
Well, I talked to Julie briefly online one day because she teaches yoga now. She's a yoga instructor, I think, up north of LA, and and a lot of people that are. My Twitter is a weird bag of comic book people, but also I have a bunch of actors, I have some directors, I have, other writers and the rest of it. And I think I was just bouncing, back and forth with Julie because I put up a post that deeply appreciated her performance in Fright Night Part 2. And she was appreciative of that, and we just kind of got into it. And I just think that like Julie's performance in that movie is really remarkable. I think one of my favorite moments in 80s cinema, if we're going to be myopic about it, is the dance that Charlie does with Regine.
Yes.
And the way the Brad Fiedel music works with it, the way it's edited. I just think it's really fantastic. And although Fiedel is probably most closely associated with his work with James Cameron for Terminator and Terminator 2, which is obviously like remarkable work.
Yeah.
I do think that his score for Fright Night 1 and 2 are really, really impressive. Just really, really, really strong music. And then when you look at Fright Night, what do you got? You got William Ragsdale, you got Roddy McDowall, you got Chris Sarandon, you have Amanda Bearse, you have a lot of talent there. And I think Tom did a fantastic job. If there was one IP that I could like revisit and do something with, I think it would be Fright Night. But as I understand, Tom has the rights to it and is trying to kind of do a thing with it. So I'm excited to see what he does with it. But yeah, I think, if I'm going to pick a favorite vampire movie, it's probably Fright Night. And then Bram Stoker's Dracula is a close second.
I absolutely love both Fright Night 1 and 2. And the remake I'm okay about. Then there's the fourth one, which I was just like, whatever. But Tom's doing something Fright Night Origins. And if you read his novel, it's the script novel. Apparently it's like more like the original script with like a few extra things kind of thrown in. Almost they seem like deleted scenes. It feels like they could have filmed the stuff that you're reading and go, wait a minute, I don't remember that from the movie. But then they go right into something from the movie immediately. Like it's verbatim words and scenes and nothing really altered. So I feel like part 2 is going to be his intention to what Fright Night Part 2 was supposed to be. And then he plans on doing a third one, a trilogy, because he has said before, I always planned Fright Night as a trilogy, but it just never worked out that way. So, but the Zoom call is about to kill us soon. But so I'm glad to hear Blade's not just 6 issues. So I'm glad it's going to continue. Sometimes these Marvel books seem to only be like 6 issues and here and there. And there's of course there's a what if Marv Wolfman's returning to write Blade in a what if storyline where Dracula turns Blade into a full-on vampire. So that will be really great to see. But I'm looking forward to more of your work coming out with this Blade series.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you everyone for listening. And check out Blade, and check out that RoboDoc on Screenbox because it is amazing.
Definitely, definitely. Where can people find you online?
Oh, I'm easy to find. So Twitter's probably, or X, whatever it's called. Best place to reach me. It's just at Bryan Edward Hill. I'll give you that again. At Bryan Edward Hill. Bryan with a Y. I'm there. My Instagram is at Bryan E. Hill, but that's going to be more of like my Hollywood stuff, filmmaking, and the rest of it. And I'll have some films, some short film content I'm doing, and some other things up very soon. So yeah, just like find me on social media and holler at me, and I'll usually holler back about the time.
Cool. Awesome. Well, one thing I also want to point out, well, just because I do have the 4th issue in front of me. I haven't read it yet, but I just picked up my subscription. This chick at the very end with the basically what looks like wearing a bikini with her skin missing is indicative of like Julie from Hellraiser wearing a bikini.
Well, I tell you what,
that looks exactly like it's just like it's the first thing that comes to mind. Julie from Hellraiser in a bikini.
there are definitely aspects of Clive Barker, that I'm playing with here, and more Byzantine kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of love letters to all the horror that I like in the book. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can see the Del Toro stuff in there.
Oh yes,
you can see the Barker stuff that's in there. You can see the John Carpenter in there if you're looking for it. So I'm very much a horror guy, but people just don't, I think, equate me with that because I don't talk about it too much.
Right, and you're coming from, or if they look at your IMDb, they'll know that you also wrote for Ash versus the Evil Dead, which is a fantastic show, and I loved all 3 seasons of that.
I did indeed.
Yeah, so we'll
enjoy that very much.
Yeah, that's a great show too. We're unfortunately out of time. I'd love to talk about it, but I want to give you your props for that because I friggin' loved every season of that show. So that gave us what we wanted for so long. So. But I look forward to more of what you got coming up. I can't wait to finally get into Blade First Bite just to see what that's like. And I hope Blade has a longevity at Marvel. Funny enough, with the legacy numbering below, it makes me question and go, what am I missing? I have these issues and these issues of Blade. Where's number 1 of the legacy numbering?
Right on. Well, I appreciate the platform, and to everyone listening, appreciate you. Everyone have a good rest of your day.